Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the White Plains City School District Reopening Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 9th. Hard to believe we're already in February. Frank and I were just talking about spring fever. I have it, and I hear it's contagious. That's the one thing that we probably won't mind spreading. No snow in the rest of the forecast this school week, so that's good news. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in and watching this meeting at a later time. I do want to preface before we even get started today, because information changes so fast and furiously, depending upon when you're viewing this meeting, please make sure that you check to make sure that something hasn't changed insofar as guidelines or guidance. So like if you're watching this meeting 2 weeks after today, there's a good likelihood that something may have changed. So just caution there. Certainly at the school district level, we will share with anybody, or with everybody rather, any changes that come down from the state. But as of right now, the information that we're sharing today is information from Wednesday, February 9th. So just a reminder there. I always like to start out first and foremost with welcoming Dr. Longobardi and thanking her for continuing to be part of our reopening committee team. Doc, any updates from what you're seeing clinically? Anything you want to share with the committee?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Well, cautiously optimistic. I mean, the numbers in our area are just about reaching pre-Omicron numbers that they were in the fall. So that is great. I feel like we've seen this movie before, though. We felt great in July, yeah, and we felt great before Omicron. So I just hope that we don't have any more surprises and that we can go in towards the nicer weather and everything settles down a little bit.
Amen. I agree. And thank you, Dr. Longobardi. I do have numbers from the county executive to share with the committee. As of the 5th of February, there were 175 new cases of COVID-19 identified in the county. So just like Dr. Longobardi said, far, far fewer than we had seen 3 weeks previous, about 4,800 tests, and we were about 3.6% positivity rate, which is exactly what Dr. Longobardi was just referring to prior to the Omicron surge. So good, cautiously optimistic, good numbers in terms of a recession or a decline in the positive cases that have been identified. So there's a lot of information floating around, and let's just kind of put everything into context right now so that everyone understands what's actually happening today. There's a conversation today about changes to masking mandates that may be coming from the State Department of Health and the governor's office. What we understand that to be is conversation related to businesses in the state of New York, not schools. Certainly if something changes, we'll alert the community, but that's not what we're anticipating. In fact, the governor indicated as early as yesterday that she does not believe that the Department of Health or her office will be making any changes to the present health safety standard requirements until after the midwinter recesses that take place throughout the state. So in the next 2 weeks or so, folks are going to be going away again. Kids are going to be going home. Some people will travel, some people will not. And the question is, will we see another surge like we saw following the December holiday? The indication is maybe not, but it's certainly what they were sharing yesterday is they want to make sure about that. Now, we're all very well aware that New York is in a different position right now than the positions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut, who have identified dates by which the mask mandate for schools will fall away. Our governor is taking a different approach and has indicated that she wants to see a continued decrease in the number of positive cases before making any changes statewide to that mandate. So that's where we are. For people who are really happy about that, we understand that there are people who are really happy about that. For people who are really upset about that, we understand that there are people who are really upset about that. The most important thing to share is that it's not your local school district's decision. We have been advocating consistently now for months for the New York State Department of Health to provide school districts and communities around the state of New York with what we've been terming as an off-ramp, a set of metrics by which parents and guardians and school employees and everyone in school communities can begin to plan for any changes in the required health safety standards. We've not received those yet. We continue to advocate for them, but we've just not seen any movement in that area. What will happen in the future is we know that at some point in time there will be changes. We don't know when they will be. What we will want to do is communicate potential changes to our community as soon as we know about them, so that there is as much preparation time, both physical preparation and also emotional and mental preparation, because we recognize that everybody comes at this from different places. So we want to give as much lead time as we possibly can. What we don't want is we don't want something occurring at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then people thinking that the next day everything changes. That's not helpful. You saw that several weeks ago. That was problematic in many communities throughout the state. So open and clear communication is really important, and making sure that our parents and guardians and school community members know exactly what's happening will remain a focus for us. With regard to potential changes as they come, we will again, as always, discuss them with the reopening committee and of course the Board of Education, as things develop. We are also looking and thinking about the midwinter recess, and Nurse Rasiopo will talk a little bit about this, but we're going to be sending take our tests home with our children for the parents and guardians to be able to test children before they send them back to school after the midwinter recess. We will also continue to participate in, or rather we'll also have the opportunity to participate in our Test to Stay program. And we will also have the opportunity to continue to participate, and folks aren't enrolled, they can still enroll in our rapid PCR saliva testing program that takes place concurrently with Test to Stay. So there are a lot of options there. We're also continuing to receive tests, and we will test as needed to make sure that everybody in our community is safe, knowing where they are. There have been some changes that came down, not really major changes, but we did see some movement in some areas, particularly with regard to the duration of Test to Stay and the testing cadence. Not really, extraordinarily profound, but a shortening of that time. Probably the largest change we saw was that students who are participating in the Test to Stay program can now participate in extracurricular activities, except in interscholastic sports. They cannot participate in contests where they're going to be going against students from a different community. So that, I guess was born out of some of the advocacy that we were doing, but at the same time kind of came down in the middle. It didn't give them the opportunity to continue to compete in athletics, but they can still train and practice. We don't have a huge number of students in our Test to Stay program, but we do have kids who are in it. And certainly we'll be prepared if we have to have some more children move into the program. But I wanted to make sure that I went over a couple of those things before we start going around the room. The other thing I want to share with you is Trustee Brady is participating in another event here, rather a review here in the district, so she was unable to attend, but she's going to watch the video later. And we know President Eller is with us this morning. Morning, Rosemarie.
Good morning. Sorry, sorry I was late. Thank you.
No, I didn't even know. You just told me. So, Rosemarie, anything? I always like to give you the opportunity if there's anything from your end.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear, any comment and feedback, and I'm happy to see Dr. Longobardi on, as well as Maggie as well. Really just to hear their thoughts in terms of what our community is seeing and hearing in the media. So I like to give that time.
Great, thanks, Rosemarie. We do have another committee member who was unable to be with us this morning, but did send along some questions, which I'm going to read into the video minutes here. I'll also answer the ones that I know the answers to. And then the other ones that I might not know the answers to, or if they're directed to a healthcare professional, you all can pick those up. The first question from this is from our member, Mrs. Andrew Lavis. The first question is, what is the recommendation of CDC for K-12 schools and masking? Presently, I believe the recommendation from the CDC for K-12 schools and masking is that schools continue to mask. Number two is, what is the recommendation of the American Academy of Pediatrics related to K-12 masking? I believe it's the same, that the American Academy of Pediatricians recommends that masks remain in schools. Again, and anyone can look these up, but I do recommend you look them up because they could change from this moment to when you're watching this video. The third question is, given the number of individuals in our buildings on any given day and the crowded nature of hallways and classrooms, what is Dr. Longobardi's recommendation on mask wearing in the district? And do Dr. Longobardi's recommendations comport with those of CDC? Well, I guess Dr. Longobardi, do you have any additional thoughts outside of what CDC and the APA have recommended, or AAP?
No, I don't. I keep up with, my boss, as I say, is the American Academy of Pediatrics. So I keep up with their recommendations, and their latest one was Monday, and in favor of masking, continued masking in schools, like you said.
And we're back. We were frozen for a minute. Doc, do you need me to read that question again?
Was there a second question? Yeah, I didn't hear anything after I spoke.
Oh, sorry. It was given the number of, given the large number of people in our facilities and difficulty in terms of being able to maintain physical distance, what's your thinking on mask wearing in schools, and are your recommendations in line with CDC and the AAP?
Oh, okay. Yes. I said my boss is the American Academy of Pediatrics. So I keep up with all their recommendations, of which they send out updates every few days. And the last one was from Monday, where they advocate continued masking in schools.
I think we're just waiting for everybody to get back. Can anybody hear me?
I can, yes. I don't know if anybody heard my answer, because again, it just.
I heard it. I heard it.
I heard it. This
Okay.
is Jessica Buck. I heard it.
Yeah, I think that we can hear each other.
I didn't hear it.
It's frozen on my, it was
I know
frozen
that
on.
Ron is checking on what's going on, either with Zoom or with the internet access.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do to try and stabilize the internet. If you're not talking, go ahead and turn your video off. That will hopefully help us a little bit. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so back, Doc, do you need me to read that question again? I apologize.
No, I heard the question. Some people heard my answer, some people didn't. So let me just jump in there now.
Okay.
American Academy of Pediatrics, that's where I take my guidance from, and I check with them regularly, and I get alerts from them regularly. And as of Monday, they're still advocating masking in schools.
Okay, thanks, Doc. The next question is, as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 ensures that children with disabilities have the same access to public school education under FAPE, which is as any other child, free appropriate public education. White Plains could, it says would, but I'm going to say could potentially be out of compliance should universal masking be abandoned. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Children who have underlying diagnoses would have a greater risk of severe illness and or death from COVID than students who do not have these medical conditions. Again, I'm reading a question. I don't know the veracity of that statement. Can you meaningfully explain to our community this law and how our district must be in compliance? Certainly. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires that all children receive a free, appropriate public education that entitles them to have unfettered access to school in the least restrictive environment possible. Next part of the question is, can you meaningfully impart to our community that it is crucial to offer all of our students in-person instruction, including those with disabilities, and that masks support this goal? Yes, it is crucial to offer all children in-person instruction. That is absolutely, I agree 100%. And masks have helped us to achieve that goal, as have the other layered mitigation strategies, including testing, vaccination, physical distancing, self-monitoring of your health and wellness. All of those things have gone a long way to keeping people healthy and safe. So I hope I answered that question. The fifth question is it well settled that schools that have maintained universal masking have lower transmission rates than their unmasked counterparts. Rather than focusing on how people feel about masks, could you agree that in-person learning should not be jeopardized by removing masks in our schools? I agree that anything we can do to maintain health, safety, and in-person learning should be absolutely part of our processes in terms of keeping kids in schools and keeping all of our community members safe. And then the sixth question is our district prepared to offer synchronous remote instruction to students who are high risk or reside in high-risk households should the district choose to attempt to remove a mask requirement? I don't think that this school, and certainly I don't speak for the Board of Education, but based on what I know about the Board of Education and what you all know about the Board of Education, I do not believe that this district nor this Board of Education would choose to abandon a universal mask mandate. I think that's a different question if the question was asked a different way, when the mask requirement is no longer a mandate. If that's the question, the answer is no. We do not have synchronous instruction ready to support students should they choose to remain home for one reason or another, including potentially living in a high-risk household or being high risk themselves. What I would say is we would absolutely need to address, back to the first question, or one of the first questions, we would absolutely need to address access, equity, and free appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, should that or when that becomes a situation that we're facing. I hope I answered all those questions. I promised Ms. Labus that I would put them out there and make sure that the committee was aware. Does anybody have any questions about any of those questions or my answers? Okay, what I'd like to do now is just go around as we normally do and see from our team members, the cabinet members first, if there are any updates at the cabinet level. Dr. Hand.
Hi, yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I just wanted to share that it's passed, but we made that adjustment to the high school midterm week so that we could maximize instruction. And I think that was definitely the right decision to make. Report cards went home at the secondary level on February 4th. That's the end of the quarter. For the second quarter, parent conferences are coming up in the beginning of March for the elementary grade levels, and the parent conferences will be remote this year as they were in the fall, and they are also by request. So a parent can request a conference or a teacher could request the conference. So be on the lookout for information from the principals. We started the accelerated learning program in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6 this week. It's going to continue until, it's an extended day program, and it's going to continue until right before Memorial Day weekend. So we're really excited to have that started in each of our elementary schools as well as at Eastview. We're focusing on research units from the American Reading Company, and also Project Lead the Way units for engineering and mathematics. We have kindergarten registration going on. We've extended that deadline a little bit to right before we go on February break. We're looking closely at mid-year data points for all grade levels. That's including K through 12. We're looking at Dibble's data and the math inventory data, reading inventory data, Erla and Neal, Fontes and Pinnell data, and also at the secondary level, passing and failing rates of each of the courses. We're doing that by grade level, and we're also doing that by individual child so that we can really, target support that's needed. And we haven't heard anything about changes to the New York State ELA math or Regents exams. So we are planning as if they are going to be administered, because we have not heard that they are going to cancel them at all. I know that that's a question that many always pose for us, but we haven't heard anything. So we're moving ahead as planned, and that we've also restarted. I think at one of the meetings recently, I said that we had put pause on all of our curriculum and instruction meetings to try to, make sure that we had, as stable of a learning environment for our children as possible. And we're continuing to do that. But we have restarted our curriculum and instruction curriculum review meetings. And we had a pretty intense week last week with physical education, science, the science of reading, and also the science program for K through 6. We're doing curriculum reviews in all those areas. So just wanted to share that, and moving along as usual. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Does anybody have any questions for Debbie? Thanks, Deb. Just so everyone knows, Rena, and thanks, Rena. Rena had to head to class. She'll let us know if she has any feedback or questions or concerns. I know that we don't have any updates from HR this morning. I do want to just shift. I don't know that we have anything from operations. Dr. Vaccaro-Taish or Mr. Stefanelli, anything on your end?
Nothing on mine. I think we're opening up activities after school, still wearing masks, so that'll continue.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. I know that from the Office of Pupil Services and Special Education, there's another meeting taking place right now, but no updates from Ms. Al-Garten today. I do want to also shift and make sure, Nurse Maggie, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to bring up a couple of updates as far as the test to stay. I want to make sure the parents understand that if a child is asymptomatic, has no symptoms, and they get exposed, they can be exposed, outside of school as well as inside of school, and they can participate in test to stay. So the parent has a choice of quarantining the child 0 to 5 days, which means it's really 6 days, and they can come back on the 7th day, or they can participate in test to stay. So, I want to bring that up to everyone. The other couple of things that I think is really important is that if a child is supposed to be quarantined and they participate and test to stay, that the parents can utilize after-school programs for childcare, as well as preschool programs for childcare. This will allow the parents to be able to go to work.
Yeah.
The only time that the child will have to stay home is if they start to exhibit symptoms.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. That's really a important update and change. Folks will remember that initially you could not participate in test to stay unless you were a potential exposure at school. Now that has changed, and you could have been potentially exposed anywhere and still participate in test to stay. Thanks, Maggie. There is a question, Mrs. Benelli. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Since we reverted back to COVID, I just had a quick question about the mask removal. And my question is, if we move as a district to removing masks, does that then depend on how many kids are vaccinated in the building, or how many cases there are, or like there are other factors that impact, like, yes, we have the go ahead, but then do we have to manage these other factors, and what are they? And then also, would other things, other mitigation then go back in place? Like, would test to stay still be there, or would it go away? Had been any discussions around that or thought around that?
These are really great questions, Lisa. Thank you for asking. And I think it's important to once again say, like, if the mandate changes, or when the mandate changes, that will be for all school districts, throughout the state, that it's no longer a mandate to wear masks. That does not mean that there won't be folks in school communities who continue to choose to wear masks. And that's a really important point. I don't know, you're actually asking about metrics, and that's exactly what we've been asking the state for. So I don't know if the removal of masks will be connected to, for instance, as you just shared, a vaccination rate. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be connected to a rolling average of positivity. I just am not sure. We'll have to wait and see how they approach it at the New York State Department of Health, and what that impact then is at the local school districts. But to your point, that's exactly what we've been asking for. What will the off-ramp consist of? What can people begin to hang their hat on, as an indicator for when things may change at the state level? Does that make sense?
It does. And then I'm assuming that also could mean it could revert if the numbers next winter go back. I guess that's all to be seen. And the test stay also, would it stay in place? Because then kids are walking around with no masks. So I was just wondering.
I would think that, again, and I'm not a medical doctor, as I say all the time, but I would think that we would want to see a systematic approach to the removal of any potential mandates. That is, what is the indicator for when masks are no longer a mandate? What is the indicator for when physical distancing is no longer a mandate? Testing, I would want to see, or we're advocating for all of those, data points. I would think that we would continue to offer test to stay, and we would continue to offer testing for as long as we can, and for as long as we know that COVID is still has not become endemic, and it is still a concern for families and children. That's what I think, but we'll have to see what they tell us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, go ahead,
to
Maggie,
this?
and then Kara has a question too.
I just want to let you know that we do a lot of testing within the district. We do the saliva testing. We actually have testing for staff on Mondays and Fridays, that they could just do a walk-in antigen test. And we are also planning to send tests home to all of the kids prior to the February break. I am planning to actually send all of those tests to the schools tomorrow, and the distribution is going to be next week. And so everyone will have the availability to have tests and be able to access tests, to be able to see if they, if they're positive or negative prior to coming to school again. And, if there's an access issue with tests, we can always call me and we can arrange for someone to get a test. So I just wanted to bring that out there. And if you can't sign up for the saliva test or you have an issue with that, let me know. So the saliva test is a PCR test, and that's available weekly through the district as well. The other thing is we also have a lot of vaccination, opportunities, and I'm going to try to continue that through the spring. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Hi, Mrs. Lyons.
Hi there. I just wanted to thank Ms. Bonelli for bringing up those questions, because I think it is really important to hear that thought out, 3 and 4 steps ahead. A lot of us have those same questions and are looking for metrics. I do think it's important that we start having conversations for our colleagues and students who do have medical needs or serious concerns about what layers of mitigation we can keep in place for those folks, so that we can keep them in classrooms and can keep them feeling safe when the off-ramp time happens. So I think that's really great. The other thing I wanted to just address is, I know Dr. Hand spoke about conversations about curriculum. Today, I'm going to participate in a conversation about assessment and instruction with the commissioner to talk about, COVID's real impact in the classroom and how that plays out, and the impact of assessments and particularly high stake assessments. So thank you. And thanks for that great thinking.
Well, and thank you in advance, Kara, for your advocacy, especially related to high stakes standardized assessments. As we all know from being in the classroom with our kids, and as our parents and guardians know from being home with their kids, there absolutely has been an impact on our children in many ways. And the structure of high stakes testing is certainly questionable during this period of time, while children are still struggling in so many ways. So thank you for that advocacy as well. Go ahead, Deb. Did you have?
I was just going to say that, thank you, Carol, for mentioning that. And as you know, I don't have to say it, but I have to say it because of what you just said, that our local benchmark assessment gives us much more information that we need on the ground to help our children succeed than a 1 or 2 day New York State assessment, especially in this environment that we're in right now. So thank you, Kara. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great point too, Deb. I wanted to also go around and open up to anybody and everybody on the committee. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, anything that we need to consider for today. Mrs. Buck?
Hi, how are you?
You can turn your camera on when you're talking. It was just, I wanted to try to stabilize Zoom. Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. I wanted to say thank you for addressing the point about communication about whatever happens with masks, whether the mandate will stay in place or not, what's going to happen in schools. Obviously, there was all that confusion, as you mentioned, and, people were upset about finding out the news and of their kids taking off masks in the classroom. So I appreciate you making the point about making a commitment to communicate to parents about whatever is going to happen and a plan for what that's going to be before anything happens within the schools. So I wanted to say thank you about that. And then the second point was, I know Dr. Hand mentioned parent-teacher conferences and that they were going to be remote again. So I guess my question in general is about when are parents going to be able to start coming back into the schools, not only for parent-teacher conferences, but for being engaged with the students and the teachers and the school community again, as we're starting to talk about the off-ramp and, what's going to happen next as the spring is coming and things are starting to change with COVID for now. How is that going to look? And when are we going to be able to do that? You know, parents coming back to the schools, watching their kids in school concerts and things like that. When is that going to start again? Because people are really clamoring to be able to do that after, 2 years of not being able to. So just wanted to find out more about that.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for raising both of those issues, because they're important issues. Go to your first point about communication, and this is, you just jogged my memory. I know we had a communication issue this week, and our mistake, where we were trying to coordinate with parents and guardians to participate in programming, trying to start, easing back into folks, volunteers and parent guardian visitors in the buildings. And one of the confusion became, do I as a parent or guardian need to be vaccinated to participate in these programs? And then do I need to show proof of vaccination in order to do that? And the answer is no. We're not requiring parents or guardians to show us proof of vaccination to enter school buildings. So that's important to state. Now, we also want to get back to the typical situation where moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and loved ones can participate in activities and support classrooms as we have pre-pandemic. Of course, everybody on this call knows this, we're just now coming out of an enormous spike following the holiday, and it's easy to forget how high those numbers were. If you're not doing this every day, right? So we went from situations where we were seeing numbers in the hundreds in some instances that some schools have identified cases of COVID-19 to now, fortunately, we're down into sometimes single digits and other times none, which is fantastic to be able to report. So moving in that right direction. To your point, what will things look like following the midwinter recess? I think and we probably can all agree, we've been doing this for a while now. That week will tell us a lot about what the stability of the environment is. If we come back and we experience another spike, we know we're still in the same situation we were, at least to an extent, before the December holiday break. If it doesn't, that leads us to have other conversations. And I think what we want to do is we want to be able to welcome parents and guardians back into the facilities. We want to do it in a safe manner. We want to also make sure that doing so doesn't potentially disrupt the school day by, exposing a child or unintentionally, of course, or exposing a faculty or staff member. So that's a bit of a tightrope to walk. We will definitely keep working toward that. And then looking for ways that parents who are able to participate in volunteer opportunities can do so, even in the interim, as we're working back to a more typical situation. If that's the best answer I can give you right now, Jess, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just wondering about like the evening things too, like the activities where kids have a concert and the parents come in the afternoon, in the evening to be able to do that, or parent teacher conferences in the afternoon. I understand, keeping parents out of the school during the day, given, risk of exposure and things like that. And obviously, depending on what happens, when we come back from break and everything, but just in terms of like those bigger activities and how to find a way to bring those back.
Yeah, and we are planning. So in the spring, we are planning for in-person types of, concerts and things like that. We're hopeful. So on the back end, we are planning for them. Whether or not they come to fruition, we'll have to see where we are.
Right.
So that it's not even just parents and guardians in the facilities that are being limited and reduced. We are also limiting our travel and our big meetings and things of that nature. We're trying to even, internally reduce those types of scenarios where they could be a spreading event that could impact a classroom. So it's not even just exterior folks, it's interior folks as well, trying to make, really preserving, like to the questions that I was answering earlier from Ms. Labus, really preserving the instructional capability in the classroom to the extent that we're able. To your other point about communication, and thanks, Liza, for reminding me, we are preparing to move away from the daily health screener. Now, some people who are watching this right now are like, yeah, Ricca, I moved away from that 8 months ago. But we as a district are preparing to move away from that screener in early March following the midwinter recess. If everything remains the same, we're going to continue to advocate that people watch at home, self-monitor and monitor their families as they always do. But that morning email or several emails, depending upon how many children you have in the schools, will go away in March. And there'll be more information coming out K-12 about that too. But thanks,
Okay.
Jess.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Okay, Mrs. Biondi had to leave for a meeting, but she made a recommendation that perhaps this committee wants to rethink its name and change the name from the reopening committee to, she suggested something like a rebalancing committee. I'm agnostic. It doesn't matter to me what we call the committee, as long as you all keep meeting and coming together to collaborate and deal with and address any potential changes. So you can ruminate, you can think about that a little bit. And if we want to make a name adjustment, we can certainly do so in the future. One last point. I think this is really important, especially for people watching at home. I know we are seeing all over the state of New York and all over the country, communities battling over masks and other things related to schools. I have been really, and continue to be really proud of our community, because we have engaged parents who absolutely want to know what's happening, what's going on at the state level, how may this impact my child, who absolutely have been advocating for clear metrics associated with an off-ramp and the mandates related to COVID-19, who absolutely are concerned about children's health and the families and our communities here in White Plains. All really good, positive things. And at the same time, recognize that it is the power to change these requirements does not rest and should not rest outside of medical professionals in our school district. We rely heavily on our medical professionals when it comes to questions and decisions related to public health. And we rely and have relied heavily on the New York State Department of Health and the Westchester County Department of Health in terms of navigating these last 2 years. We'll continue to do that. We're not making decisions arbitrarily. We're not making decisions based on necessarily, like for instance, what I want, what I personally, right, Joe Ricca wants, will never enter into the calculus of the decision-making processes that are taking place in the district. I appreciate everybody for understanding that and for being so patient and flexible over these long 2 years as we're working through it. But I also want to remind people to remember what we've gone through and what we've accomplished together and have been able to overcome. And it's been a lot. So as we're now moving into what I hope are calmer waters and more likely to return to pre-pandemic type of an environment, let's do so in a manner that continues to respect the approach that we've had all along, which is collaborative, communicative, and really focused on the well-being of the many, everyone in our community. And so that's my, really kind of just reminder, public service announcement, and thanks to everybody for all of this hard work. And it's been a lot. So thank you to all of you this morning, and thanks to everybody who's watching at home. And just a reminder, depending upon when you're watching this video, you might want to recheck guidance with CDC, AAP, New York State Health, and Westchester County Health, because things do change pretty rapidly. And we'll continue to update our community as necessary too. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.